Welcome everyone to a new event that's happening in Prague, the Prague Chess Festival. And we have the Prague Masters happening there. You have Hans Niemann entering in as this little kid wants a picture with him. The tournament is happening in Don Giovanni, and we have the world champion Gukesh as well here. And as Gukesh enters in and says goodbye to his team, that's Gayevsky there, his coach in the background. The little kid is having a lucky day today. Not only did he get a picture with Hans, but also with the world champion there, Gukesh. The tournament has Hans Niemann, Gukesh, Anton Guyaro, Yakuboyev Noderbek, Vincent Keimer, Jordan Van Forest, Parham Maksudlu, David Navara, Arvind Chidambaram, and Noderbek Abdusattorov. Now, what a tournament this is as Gukesh comes in to face Hans. Arvind is the defending champion. He won it in 2025. And Gukesh takes off his player card. The players shake hands and we are ready to go. And maybe Hans pressed the clock and it maybe sort of got pressed for himself as well as Gukesh, which means one move might have been recorded in it, which is the reason why the arbiter is asked to reset the clock, as after 40 moves there is a additional 30 minute, so the players don't want to risk it at all. And Gukesh now with the white pieces opens with pawn to e4. Hans Niemann and Gukesh played an insane game recently at Vaikanze, where Hans went all out to beat Gukesh, and then Gukesh himself sacrificed a piece in a completely winning position. Knight comes out to f3. It's actually a recipe for an exciting clash, both of them, because both are ambitious, both want to fight, and e4 e5 is in no way going to stop them from playing ambitious chess. Bishop b5. Gukesh has the Ruy Lopez on the board. And now knight to f6 played, attacking the pawn on e4. This is the Berlin, and d3 is the anti-Berlin, which Gukesh loves to play. He doesn't like to we go into the Berlin with queens off the board, that Berlin endgame. Bishop c5 played. And now Gukesh chops off on c6. Because if you don't take, sometimes the knight can jump to the d4 square. So he takes it, pawn takes, and now remember you can't take this pawn because of queen d4, a double attack. So he first castles, and now this pawn is hanging. So if black were to castle, knight e5 and white is clearly better. So knight d7 makes a lot of sense. Although you block this bishop for the time being. Knight c3 by Gukesh. And now black castles. And Gukesh plays his pawn to a4. This is all very typical, standard. Sometimes you bring your knight from e2 to g3. Here he goes rook e8. Sometimes you also go bishop e3 to trade off the bishops. And now Gukesh goes knight e2. Maybe trying for this idea, but also could be in the work c3 and d4. Bishop f8 played. I mean, I'm a bit surprised with this retreat, I must say. Maybe he wants to go f6, knight c5, knight e6. All right, got it. Bishop e3 played. And by the way, Gukesh has just used a couple of minutes on the clock, while Hans Niemann has used 7 minutes used. a5. Regaining the space on the queen side. And knight comes back to d2. White would like to play the pawn to f4 in this position. And he goes pawn to b6. Maybe bishop a6, maybe bishop b7. Gukesh first decides to put his king on h1. Now white clearly has a plan here with f4, but you have to be a bit careful while executing it, Knight c5, like don't play f4 now because there are some tactics lurking in the air. Some knight d3, cd3, queen coming in. Okay, that's going to be crazy if that happens, but we just f3, very calm, cool, composed, or b3 or h3. But Gukesh blunders. He goes f4. Oh my goodness. He plays f4. And Hans here, boom, after 9 minutes of thought, takes on d3. Is this a big surprise for Gukesh? Or what? Pawn takes. And queen takes. And now you will see that bishop a6 is coming. Bishop b4. Rook into the center. Let's say, for example, now you have to move your bishop. Or you have to play rook f3, but rook f3, there's bishop g4. Oh my goodness. What a sacrifice by Hans Niemann here. He goes bishop g1. Okay. And now very important to play bishop a6. Kind of pin here. He of course plays it. And now the thing is, if you go knight c3, I go rook a d8. I attack your... And if you move the knight, f1 is hanging. If you try to defend it this way, suddenly the bishop pops out. It's like all of black's pieces are working in perfect harmony. So knight c1 makes a lot of sense to hit the queen, getting a tempo. But on the other hand, the knight is so poorly placed. Comes back, queen d7. And now the bishop attacks the rook here on f1. Rook f3 makes some sense in this position. He goes knight to b1 even. Of course, you can't take the rook. The queen is hanging. And if you take the queen, then I'll take back with the rook. Rook takes d1. So he goes rook a d8. Fantastic move by Hans Niemann. He's playing on the piece play, on the power of his pieces. Gukesh, well, I wonder what's going on in his mind. Is he thinking he's okay? Is he thinking he's in trouble? Rook takes d7 taken. And now f1 is hanging. He goes rook f3. And maybe he takes f4 with the attack on e4 is possible. Hans takes it. He takes f4 on the board. By the way, one must remember that rook d1 somehow doesn't work because of knight c3. And I'm able to push you away. So he takes f4. And now knight c3 played. He did not take on f4. So maybe he didn't like bishop b4 there. Okay, knight c3 on the board. And now g5. Oh, bishop d6. Also a good move. Defending the f4 pawn. Let's count the material on the board. White has 5 pawns. Black has 8 pawns. He goes knight to d3. And white has an extra piece. So, piece for 3 pawns. I think g5 for sure. And yes, Hans plays g5. Insane. Well, Gukesh under big pressure. His knights are not working. He goes knight f2, trying to stop g4 now. f6, play it calmly. f6, king g7, go slow. But he goes h5. And maybe, I think rook h3 is a great move for Gukesh. He gets some play now. He finds it. Rook h3, attacking the h5 pawn. h4 played. I think the point now is to go knight to g4. Somehow your knights start to get squares, and that's what Gukesh is enjoying now. Knight f6 check, a massive threat here. By the way, king g7, the bishop will jump into the board. Sometimes, I see this happening to Gukesh's games. His pieces come to life all of a sudden. I don't know how it happens. g3, a very important move here. g3 to break this structure, to activate the rook which was cornered on the side of the board. And Hans Niemann takes fg, hg. And by the way, remember 26 moves, so they have to reach move 40. 14 minutes for Hans, 16 minutes for Gukesh, rook d3. pinning the pawn on g3 and also opening up bishop c8 diagonal. But Gukesh is quick. Rook knight to e5. If you play rook g3, I take and king g2. Maybe I'm okay as white here. It's fine. So what will Hans do? He's already a piece down. He's thinking here. The rook is attacked. Needs to defend it. I mean, needs to move it, by the way. The most natural move would be to take the pawn on g3, but Hans is thinking. He's like, piece doesn't look enough. I need to sacrifice more. Man, these two players are just incredible. In fact, Hans Niemann, somehow Gukesh brings out the best in him. He wants to beat him in the most romantic way. Boom! Sacrifices another exchange. How he's now full rook down. And not many players can surprise Gukesh so many times in the game. Bishop c8. Now hitting the rook on h3. Okay, if rook h2, hg3 is a good move, he goes king g2. Gukesh is like, wow, I'm giving back some material, Hans, take it. I don't need a rook. Because, if rook h2, hg3, it would have been really, really tough for Gukesh. So, bishop f6. Hans is not taking material. In fact, he's saying, take my pawn, Gukesh. And Gukesh chops off the pawn. Knight takes c6. And boom, rook takes e4 taken here. And now c3 pawn hanging. The rook is under pressure. He goes bishop d4. I mean, I like how Gukesh is handling this. He's like, trade pieces. At least that will help. And bishop takes h3, king takes h3, taken. And maybe now bishop d4. Well, he first goes g4 check. I like this move because king takes h4, impossible. The bishop defends the pawn. King comes back to h2. And maybe now you take on d4 and push the pawn to h3. Yes, he takes it. And pawn takes. Oh, he takes with the knight. And now h3. So 6 pawns for black, 3 pawns for white. He goes rook a2. And king f8. I think black's position is easier to play here. But perhaps this might be the best position that Gukesh has had in several moves, since the opening. Knight b5. And this attacks the pawn on c7. I think Gukesh is getting a bit excited there. Rook c4. A good move by Hans. Defends c7. Attacks c3. Rook e2 check. King d7. Will the king maybe find a home on b7 square? And rook to f2 played, attacking the pawn on f7. That's what Gukesh has to do here. He has to keep trying to inconvenience his opponent. Hans, rook takes, pawn check, king c6. Now taking on c7 would be a losing move because rook check, king h1 and rook g2, and then pick this up and black is better. And so he plays knight a7 check here, Gukesh. And the point is, after king b7, there's knight b5. If you go rook c4, there's knight d6 check. So you have to be careful. You can't save the c7 pawn. So he goes king d5. He's starting to move ahead. 40 moves have been done. Both players get additional 30 minutes on the clock Rook takes c7 taken here by Gukesh. And Hans Niemann, well, can he create something here with slight lack of harmony in the white pieces? The rook and the knight are offside. He goes rook g2, he's attacking the pawn on g3. If he can get these two passers and then the a pawn running, oh my goodness, that would be big trouble. He goes knight c8 here. Gukesh, he's attacking the b6 pawn with a check. Hans reaching out for his king. King e4 played. Now do you take this pawn on b6? Well, he goes knight d6 check. But king f3. Okay, king f3, maybe he wants to go knight f5 and defend this pawn. So he goes king d3. Wow. Okay. And Gukesh pushes his pawn to c4. Man, Gukesh, how is he surviving here is the big question. Rook takes pawn now. Isn't that? Rook takes g3. Take the pawn. Yes. Oh no, Hans goes king d4. I mean, maybe rook g3. The idea was rook g7. Maybe it was the only move to defend. King d4. Rook c6 played. And once again, Hans is not going for the g3 pawn. He pushes a4. I think you must take now on b6. He chops off the pawn. I think something he might have missed, because here there's check and you lose the pawn on a3. Oh, he still goes a3. And I don't get it. What's happening here? Knight b5, you have king c5. That's the point. King c5 is the point. No, he goes king e5. What? Can I not simply take here? He takes the pawn on a3 and Hans takes the pawn on g3, attacking the knight. If Hans gets g3 and a check on the last rank, that could be catastrophic. Knight b5. And rook d3 played. And now a very important move. Rook a6 to a1. Come back. He finds it. So that if g3, you can bring your rook here. And although white's position is passive, there's just no way to make a queen so easily. So rook check, king h2. If only the black king was here, he could have maybe gotten in the move g3. But maybe that was also not enough. I don't know. Check. What a game this is. What a game by both these gladiators. They've fought crazily. King h1. Gukesh just is happy with his king on the last rank. g3 pushed and rook quickly comes back to a1. And I believe Hans Niemann can no longer try here. He does play h2. But what's the winning idea? Every time you push g2, king takes h2 is hanging. He goes c5. Pushes his c pawn ahead. I mean, one hope for black is to bring the king to h3. It's going to take 3 moves. It's a lot of time. King f4. And knight to d6. And Hans is coming in. He first puts his rook behind the pawn so that, it doesn't start running away. c6. The thing is, if you go like king g4, I have knight e4 and king h3, I can just sack the knight. That's a draw. Anyway, he goes king e5. And Gukesh goes for a check. Well, he's a bit low on time, but I think this position is manageable with 30-second increment. King f5. And now Gukesh, just calculating, finally pushes the pawn to c7. And if rook takes c7 now, I mean, otherwise this pawn is queening. So he takes it. And now just bring your king up. King g2. Yes, good move. Even though rook takes f7 is hanging, g3 pawn is hanging, you can't protect it anymore. Like king g4, there is knight e5 check. King f4, there is rook f1 check. Sorry. So he goes rook takes knight, king takes g3, and the game is drawn. What a fight between these two players. Absolutely insane and incredible chess played by them, and enjoyable. Hans Niemann, I must say, really showed his class in this game to put Gukesh under insane pressure. And Gukesh, on the other hand, he defended like a lion here. He just didn't let Hans run away with the game. And this sets up a very, very exciting event that's going to take place in the next few days. We leave you with some bits of uh, what's happening outside as the players go out. But just so that you know, there were 4 decisive games. This was the only non-decisive game. There was Yakuboev beaten Anton Guyaro, Vincent losing to Jordan in hot form, David Navara losing to Parham Maksudlu, and Nodirbek Abdusattorov losing to Arvind Chidambaram. Nodirbek Abdusattorov winning against Arvind Chidambaram. And there you can see Hans Niemann. Well, he was not happy with this, and Gukesh getting some congratulatory maybe statements from the arbiter there that he defended well. That's one of the oldest arbiters out there and one of the most experienced, Pavel Votruba. Great game. I hope you enjoyed it.
Can I take a photo?
Thank you.
One photo. Thank you.